Hey folks, let me tell you about the kind of suburban nightmare that makes you rethink buying that perfect house with the white picket fence. Our little slice of heaven was Willow Creek Estates, the kind of place where every lawn looked like it had been vacuumed. Mailboxes matched the HOA color chart down to the exact shade of beige, and kids rode bikes in matching helmets because, well, rules. It was the American dream on steroids, until it wasn't. I'm Ethan Brooks, 53, retired engineer, widower with two loyal labs named Max and Duke. I'd lived on my 5-acre family patch right on the edge of Willow Creek for 20 years, long before the developers rolled in and slapped up those cookie-cutter McMansions. My place was the last holdout of real woods and quiet, and that heavy-duty custom iron gate I welded myself 3 years back, it was my line in the sand. Kept the coyotes out, the dogs in, and the world at a respectful distance. Or so I thought. It started on a crisp October Tuesday, fog hugging the pines like a bad secret. I was sipping black coffee on the porch when this bright red Escalade came screaming down the county road like it owned the place. It skidded to a halt right at my gate, and out stepped the queen herself, Victoria Vicky Kensington, president of the Willow Creek HOA, clipboard in one hand like it was Excalibur, blonde hair sprayed into submission, and a smile that could curdle milk. Vicky wasn't just any Karen. She was the alpha Karen, the one who'd fine you for a dandelion and call it community standards. She rattled my gate bars like a prisoner demanding release and screamed, "This eyesore has to go. It's violating every aesthetic bylaw in the book and blocking emergency access." I walked down the gravel drive slow, feeling that familiar pit in my stomach, the one that says your peaceful morning just got hijacked. No hello, no good morning, just her manicured finger jabbing the air. "You're not even in the HOA, Ethan, but your gate is an abomination. The main entrance is under beautification for a month, and I've designated your driveway as the official detour. Unlock it now, or I'm calling the sheriff." Geography matters here, folks. My land was grandfathered in decades before Willow Creek existed. That old logging road behind her cul-de-sac? Mine since 1974. She had a perfectly good paved exit on the other side that looped to the highway, but nope. Vicky wanted the shortcut because it saved her 10 precious minutes to her spin class. I blinked, trying not to laugh. "Vicky, this isn't your private highway. I'm not in your club, and neither is my gate. Drive the long way like everyone else." Her face went nuclear red. She started flipping pages on that clipboard, spitting out bylaws that applied to dues-paying members, not me. Then the real bomb. Property values will tank because of your prison aesthetic. The HOA has spoken. I crossed my arms, leaned against the limestone pillar, and gave her the calmest smile I could muster. "Tell you what, sympathy for your commute, but my land isn't a public thoroughfare. Call whoever you want." She did. Dialed 911 right there, sobbing into the phone about being trapped by a hostile barricade, while conveniently forgetting she could just back up and leave. Deputy Ramirez showed up 20 minutes later, a good guy I'd known since Little League. One look at the scene, me relaxed, Vicky hyperventilating, and he sighed the sigh of every cop stuck in suburban nonsense. "Ma'am, is your vehicle broken down? No, then you're not trapped. You're just inconvenienced. And if you waste emergency resources again, that citation's yours." Vicky stormed off, but not before muttering, "This isn't over, rustic savage. Progress doesn't stop for relics like you." I waved as she peeled out, but inside, a little voice whispered this was just the opening act. The next morning, I woke to a drone buzzing over my yard like an angry wasp. Vicky was on her Escalade roof, controller in hand, filming my code violations for the county board. I waved at the lens, went back to pruning tomatoes, but the harassment was just warming up. She organized vigils at my gate with two clone-like friends holding signs, "Tear down this wall," and "Community Unity." Irony was lost on them. They filed complaints everywhere. Animal control over my dogs barking at squirrels, EPA on my compost, even the fire marshal claiming my gate was a hazard. Every inspector showed up, drank my coffee, laughed about that crazy lady next door, and left with 0 fines. But Vicky? She had one ace left. She marched into county offices demanding a petition to declare my driveway strip a public easement based on some dusty 1950 map. He's squatting on community land, she declared with that smug swagger. The notice hit my mailbox a week later, and yeah, my stomach twisted. Rural records get messy. I hired old Pete, the surveyor who'd been measuring dirt since Nixon, and told him to dig deep. While Pete worked, Vicky smirked from her side of the line, asking every hour if he'd found my theft yet. Pete spent 3 days out there with lasers and tripods, buried in courthouse archives, while Vicky paced like a shark smelling blood. I stayed patient, folks, kept my head down, collected every email, every drone video, every complaint on a flash drive. My lab sensed the tension. Max would growl low whenever her SUV cruised by. Neighbors started whispering. Mrs. Henderson from 2 houses down dropped by with a casserole and a warning. Ethan, Vicky's telling everyone you're holding the subdivision hostage. She's got the book club terrified of your rustic eyesore. I just smiled and said, tell them I'm not in the club. Boundaries matter. But inside, the anger simmered. Here was a woman who'd fine you for a mailbox 2 inches off center, now demanding I hand over my land, because her yoga commute was sacred. The small injustices piled up like snowdrifts. One afternoon she showed up with 3 other HOA board members, clipboard army in tow, demanding I voluntarily comply for property values. One of them, a mousy lady named Susan, actually said, think of the children, Ethan. What message does your gate send? I looked her dead in the eye. It sends the message that private property exists. Maybe teach the kids that instead of teaching them to bully neighbors. Vicky cut in with her signature sarcasm. Oh, how noble. Playing the lone wolf while the rest of us build community. I fired back. Community doesn't mean you get to rewrite deeds, Vicky. Maybe read one sometime. They left in a huff, but the drone flights doubled. My mailbox started getting anonymous notes. Remove the gate or else. I saved every one. By week 3, the whole neighborhood felt the chill. People who used to wave now averted eyes when they drove past my gate on their way to the main road. Vicky had painted me as the villain in her little fiefdom, and folks were scared of fines or social exile. I felt the isolation creep in, sympathy for myself, sure, but mostly rage at how one entitled woman could turn a peaceful suburb into a surveillance state. Still, I waited. Pete called me on day 4, voice crackling with excitement. Ethan, sit down and pour something strong. You're gonna love this. He spread the giant map on my kitchen table, red lines slicing through everything. That 1950 map Vicky loves? It proves a clerical screw-up by the original developer. But not against you. My heart stopped. What? Pete grinned like he'd won the lottery. The error's on her side. That fancy cul-de-sac, her rose-lined driveway, even 10 feet of her front porch, all built on your original 1920 logging deed land. Never transferred to the HOA. Legally, it's yours. She's been trespassing every time she pulls into her garage. I stared at those lines cutting right through her manicured empire, and a slow, dangerous grin spread across my face. The tables didn't just turn, they exploded. I didn't run over screaming. No, I played it cool, waited for the certified county letter to hit her mailbox. When it did, the scream that ripped from her house was pure primal. I was in the garden pruning hydrangeas when she came storming across the grass, paper clutched in shaking hands, makeup already running. This is a lie. You bribed them. That's my land. I bought it. I leaned on my hoe, pushed my hat back, and delivered the line I'd practiced in the mirror. Actually, Vicky, you bought the house. But you forgot to check who owned the dirt under your driveway. County says it's me. Puts us in a pickle, doesn't it? Her face twisted, rage, disbelief, that delicious moment when the bully realizes the bear owns the forest. She sputtered threats about Supreme Court, lawyers, the whole HOA board backing her. I just shrugged. Your call. But the cease and desist is already in effect. No more legal driveway until we resolve this. That was the twist, folks, the hook that changed everything. Vicky's entire perfect life sat on my land. The HOA common areas she lorded over? Encroaching. Her rose bushes? Squatters. The irony was thicker than her foundation. Neighbors who'd been terrified of her suddenly started waving at me, thumbs up when they passed. One guy even stopped his SUV and whispered, "Man, you just ended her reign. We've been living under her thumb for years." The social tide turned overnight, and Vicky felt it. She became a ghost in her own kingdom, blinds drawn, no more clipboard marches. But cornered animals bite hardest. I tried to be the bigger man. Next day, I walked over with a simple easement agreement. $1 a year, she acknowledges my ownership, drops every complaint, and writes a public apology to me and the sheriff. Sign this, Vicky, and we both move on with dignity mostly intact. She stared at the paper like it was poison, then ripped it clean in half and flung the pieces in my face. I will never apologize to a tyrant like you. I'll bulldoze a new path before I bow to this. I watched the confetti flutter to the grass, sighed, and said, "Your funeral," before locking my gate, the only legal exit she now had, with a satisfying click. The next 2 weeks were pure descent into madness. Vicky, too stubborn for the easement and too broke for wetlands permits on the other side of her lot, started parking on the main road and hiking a quarter-mile through muddy woods to reach her house. Designer heels ruined, designer pants splattered, ego shattered. The same women who once held signs with her now giggled behind their curtains. She tried hiring contractors for a new driveway, denied. EPA wetlands, remember? Another fact she'd have known if she wasn't busy measuring everyone else's grass. The neighborhood turned into a spectator sport. Folks brought popcorn to watch her trudge through the muck. Dark humor at its finest. But desperation breeds stupidity. It was 2 a.m. on a rainy Tuesday when my new motion sensors lit up my bedroom monitors like a Christmas tree. 2 figures in dark raincoats fumbling with bolt cutters at my gate. Vicky and her poor, henpecked husband Ted, who looked like he was apologizing to the rain itself. I didn't call the cops right away. Instead, I flipped the 10,000 lumen floodlights I'd installed the week before. Pure daylight blasted them. Vicky dropped the cutters with a clang that echoed through the valley. I hit the intercom. "Ted, go home." "Vicky, smile. You're on the cloud, and Deputy Ramirez is getting this in 4K. Ted bolted like a scared rabbit. Vicky stood there soaked, flipping the bird at the camera before stomping away, defeated but defiant. Morning came, and I handed the footage to Ramirez. By noon, Vicky was served. Charges for attempted destruction of property and trespassing. The look on her face when the cruiser showed up at her door, not to rescue her this time, but to cuff her, was priceless. That was the beginning of the end, but the real payoff was still coming. Court day felt like the social event of the season. The courtroom packed with neighbors who'd once feared Vicky, now whispering and chuckling. She represented herself, because no lawyer in town would touch her after seeing the survey maps. Judge Holloway, a no-nonsense woman with zero tolerance for nonsense, listened to Vicky's opening rant about emotional distress from floodlights and deep state conspiracy against suburban values. 10 minutes in, the judge took off her glasses, rubbed her nose, and dismantled everything with surgical precision. "The land is indisputably Mr. Brooks. You've been trespassing for years. The gate sabotage attempt is criminal. Permanent restraining order, 50 feet from Mr. Brooks and his property at all times." Then the hammer. Judge looked at my original easement offer, the one Vicky had ripped up, and asked if it still stood. I stood up, looked Vicky dead in her trembling eyes, and said, "Your Honor, the price went up. $500 a month to a charity of my choice, plus a public retraction in the local paper admitting the harassment." Vicky gasped, face pale as her designer blouse. Judge nodded. Reasonable given the documented pattern of abuse. Accept or lose vehicle access permanently. Vicky signed right there, hand shaking so hard the pen tore the paper. No eye contact, no words, just defeat in black ink. She walked out alone. Even Ted had bailed. The public apology hit the paper a week later, stiff, insincere, but there, "I apologize for my actions regarding Mr. Brooks' property and the unnecessary distress caused." Neighbors printed it and taped it to their mailboxes like trophies. Vicky stopped coming outside. Blinds forever drawn. The once proud HOA president reduced to a recluse in the house that wasn't even legally hers without my permission. But people like Vicky don't learn humility, they relocate blame. She paid the monthly fee like clockwork, but the silence around her house grew heavier than any fine she'd ever issued. 2 months later, the for sale sign went up. Moving trucks hauled away her perfect curtains, her staged furniture, the life she'd tried to control with clipboards and threats. The day she left, I was at the gate oiling the hinges, just routine maintenance, when her car pulled up to the property line, stopping short. She rolled down the window, eyes tired and empty. "It's just a gate," she rasped. "Just metal." I leaned on the bars and answered, "No, Vicky, it's a boundary. And some people never learn where they end and the rest of the world begins until they slam into one." She rolled the window up without another word and drove away down the strip she was now renting from me. A nice young couple bought the place weeks later, golden retriever, blueberry pie as a housewarming gift, and the first question out of their mouths, "Does the gate bother you? Want to split the cost of a fresh coat of paint?" I laughed and told them it was perfect exactly as it was. Life returned to normal. Max and Duke chased squirrels again. Neighbors waved freely. The HOA even elected a new, saner president who actually read the bylaws instead of inventing them. A year later, on another foggy autumn morning, I stand on the porch with my coffee, looking at that iron sentinel. It still keeps the coyotes out and the world at bay, but now it carries a story. The story of how one woman's need for control stripped away every veneer of suburban politeness and revealed the ugly, entitled core underneath. I didn't win because I was richer or meaner. I won because I knew exactly where I stood, literally and figuratively, and I respected the lines that divide us. Sometimes I wonder if I was too hard. Should I have given her the easement for free and saved us both the drama? Or is it necessary, in a world full of people who think screaming and suing gets them everything, to stand firm and lock the gate? Did Vicky deserve to lose her home over a driveway? Or was she the architect of her own exile? I leave that to you folks. The court case is closed, but the jury of public opinion is always in session. And I have a feeling every one of you has met a Vicky at least once. Until next time, keep your fences strong, your property lines clear, and remember, some boundaries aren't meant to be crossed, they're meant to be defended.